I have discovered a great .NET tool, Entity Services, that significantly saves development time, especially if your app collects data from various sources and shares it via a web API. It will create for you enterprise-level, code-ready source code based on a simple configuration. What I like about this approach is that I can then focus on writing code that really matters. Check it out at their website, entity.services. That's entity.services. Hello everyone and welcome to the .NET Core Podcast, an award-winning podcast where we reach into the core of the .NET technology stack and, with the help of the .NET community, present you with the information that you need in order to grok the many moving parts of one of the biggest cross-platform multi-application frameworks on the planet. I am your host, Jamie GaProgMan Taylor. In this episode, I chatted with John Westgarth about how he pivoted from teaching English as a foreign language to cybersecurity, an industry that he previously knew nothing about, and that this happened at the start of the 2020 situation. We talk about why he decided to take the plunge and how he got started on this journey. Along the way, we discuss some of the transferable skills that non-technical people have, which can be used to help them get started in the cybersecurity industry. We also talk about the bootcamp that he attended, CAPSLOCK, and the support that he received. It's important to note that this episode is not an advertisement for CAPSLOCK, just a discussion of John's experience with them. If you know anyone who would like to get into the cybersecurity industry, please consider sending this episode, and perhaps the previous one, over to them, as it is a discussion with almost no technical points, and I feel like it might help them to decide on that next step. So let's sit back, open up a terminal, type in .NET New Podcast, and let the show begin. So, John, first thing I want to say is thank you ever so much for spending some time with me this afternoon talking about what we're about to talk about. I think it's quite important that that people realize that it's possible to get into the cybersecurity industry and get the training that you may require without having to go through university, right? Because a lot of people will be sitting here going, I want to do cybersecurity, but I don't want to have to go back to university or even go to university and get a 4-year degree, right? Because as soon as you start, it's already out of date, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. But yeah, I think it's really helpful and really important to break down those barriers of, oh no, I've got to go do retraining, so therefore I've got to go to university. Can I get into university? Do I have the entry level points and so on as well? And getting into cyber obviously is something that is constantly evolving and changing. I mean, even during my time of study, we're still keeping an eye on what's happening like every day as well. Yeah, it's really important, and it's important to see what options are out there as well. I'm a big fan of that idea.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think you're you said there about breaking down those barriers. It makes it more inclusive, right? Because if you say to someone, you can only get this job if you have a degree, well, maybe having the degree requires a certain amount of commitment, a certain amount of funding, a certain amount of, I mean, anyone of any age can go to university as long as, like you say, you hit those targets. But, you know, it's been proven that maybe as you get a little bit older, it becomes harder to take in that information. It becomes harder to generate that time and that effort. So, you know, allowing people to learn to be able to do this, regardless of who they are, how they identify, where they come from, what their background is, all of that stuff, can only be a good thing, right?
For sure. This really was geared towards helping people to get into the industry with CAPSLOCK. They were absolutely fantastic. And one of the major things for a lot of people that is a real big appeal is their income share agreement. And the income share agreement actually talks about you taking a loan out, essentially, similar to a university loan. But with this loan, I don't have to pay it back until I have a job, until I'm earning over 27,000. And considering the average in cyber is 30, 32 as well, it's going to be a good start. So they really do encourage anybody and everybody to potentially join that course. They don't welcome all comers. You have to prove that you have a certain level of aptitude. There's pre-course content, which is generally for someone who doesn't have an IT background, quite challenging. But if it's challenging and you force yourself to go through that challenge, and after you've done it, you go, oh, actually, that was kind of fun. Then, yeah, you're in the right place. You're on the right path as well. And the variation of people and backgrounds that they've had on previous courses and my course as well was just staggering, really. It was kind of inspiring to see, really. It's a really, really positive thing to have available to us all.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about your journey, if you don't mind, then. All right, because you're saying that as long as you're able to come at it from a certain aptitude level, you can come from technically anywhere. Right? So how did you get into it?
So essentially, to myself, a bit of sort of personal background, working background, I guess, really, to paint the picture before actually joining CAPSLOCK. I used to do a lot of water sports, and I used to teach sailing, windsurfing, and it's a very seasonal occupation where I'd go around the world. Kind of grew up a little bit. I thought, I needed more of a full-time work and more steady work. But I still had that desire to travel. So I went into teaching English, and I was teaching English in China for a few years. Unfortunately, sort of late 2019, I got made redundant out in China, and I came back to the UK, and I thought, that's okay. So kind of a horrible experience, but I'll take the summer, not summer, the Christmas, sorry, of 2019. And I thought, let's go back to China early 2020. And obviously, the world caught fire. So during sort of COVID, with everything going on, I was still hunting for work out there, and I even found work and I even had job offers. But because of all the various legislation, laws, or rules, it was taking forever to get out there. And I was thinking, hey, is this really the best idea? I'm sort of waiting month after month after month. And it like just being in stasis in a way. It was really not a healthy sort of lifestyle to be going through. And a good friend of mine who I worked with in the sailing industry, who, like me, I guess, was in an industry that suffered. He was a chef in London, and all of his options sort of went south a little bit as well. And he found this course. He sort of disappeared off my radar for a few months. I was like, look, where is he gone? And when he finally popped back up, I was like, dude, what are you doing? And why the radio silence? And he's like, well, I'm sorry, I've been incredibly busy on a cybersecurity course. And maybe like many others during COVID, when we saw that poster of that ballerina, and I think it said so-and-so could be in cyber, but she doesn't know it yet. And I was like, oh, shut up, Boris. Just ignored it. And then, quite funnily enough, I found myself actually doing that. And it was all based on my friend's recommendation, where I looked into the course, I looked at the CAPSLOCK website and thought, this is actually spelled out very clearly. They look like very welcoming people. They look like good people as well. It's always a good thing to be working with well-intended people. And then I did the pre-course, went, actually, there's some elements of this I really enjoyed. Some elements less so, but I still sort of enjoyed the challenge of working through them. And I thought, let's do this, because it seems to be an industry that is an industry of growth. It seems to be many opportunities as well. And I thought, going through that company sort of from zero to hero almost, in a way where they get you up to a certain level, I thought that would be a great way to assist me getting into the industry. And here I am. But I think the most important sort of takeaway from this as well, yes, I was an English teacher. Yes, I taught sailing. and it has nothing to do with cyber. But there's so many transferable skills from all those roles that actually go into cyber as well. And throughout the course, so many eureka moments where I go, oh my God, I know this. And oh my God, I can do this. It was really eye opening in that regards.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Just for the international listeners, the posters that John is referring to is during the wobbliness, which is how I prefer to refer to it, is the UK government released a number of big posters that tried to drive people out of the industries that were being affected the most and push them towards IT industries, cybersecurity, programming, things like that. And yeah, the poster, the sort of canonical one was a picture of a ballerina, and it said something like, Sarah's next job could be in cyber, she just doesn't know it yet. Google for cyber and take a course or whatever, right? And yeah, they were a bit ham-fisted, I think. It was just like, splat, there's our response. But that, I'm drifting into politics there. I'm going to stay out of that. But yeah, no, I like the idea that you were able to just sort of approach this with, hey, this is something I want to do. This is an industry I want to be in. And that there was a group of people, a body, a company, whatever, that were there ready to go, hey, come on in. Because that's my whole thing, right? The reason I produce this show and the two other shows that I do is because I want to be able to help point people in the right direction of, or give people that experience, give people that what's the word I'm looking for? The advice. That's the word. So one of the reasons why I produce this show and the other two shows that I produce is that I want to be able to give people the poke in the right direction, give them something to Google, give them their direction to travel in, and give that advice. Because the old phrase, "A journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step." Well, you got to be pointing in the right direction before you do, because otherwise it's 2,000 miles, right?
Yeah, it's very true. I think really one of the big things as well, and I think everybody on my course alluded to this when we all started. We all kind of went, "Phew, this isn't a scam," as well, because very quickly you realize you're in a very serious but welcoming. I want to. It's a genuine, legitimate organization with a proper idea, run by doctors of education who have years experience in cyber as well. So they're the perfect people to actually set this course up and deliver it as well. And then it's the fact that they're a company that allow you to take a loan to enter that course. You can pay up front if you have the means to do so, and congrats if you can. That's great for you. Or you can pay it in certain installments at an agreed time. But to be able to take a loan and to have X amount of people all taking loans, and you could have 2, 3, 4 years to potentially pay back that loan, I think is a real commitment to the actual cyber industry, because they're not chasing that profit straight away. They know it will eventually come to them, but good things come to those who wait.
Exactly. I like the idea of what you'd said about transferable skills. So a lot of people who are looking at IT, cybersecurity, the cyber industry, whichever area of the cyber industry that may be, they may not realize, like you said, about those transferable skills, the things that you've learned elsewhere that you can bring with you, right? And one of the things that I do when I'm mentoring people and trying to help them to sort of learn what they need to learn or point them in the right direction is, I try to use metaphor and similes and analogies because it's truthy enough that it kind of gets the point across. So I'm not in that industry of trying to teach people the skills like hardcore, 24/7 or whatever. So, I did do some teacher training, but, only a little bit of that skill comes out.
Yeah.
But let's talk about those transferable skills then. Have you got any examples? Because obviously, people listening in will want to know what
There's
they can do.
there's really one that comes to the mind quite immediately, actually. During my last couple of years as a water sports manager, each centre would have an inspection from a national governing body, so the Royal Yachting Association in terms of the UK. And I was out in the middle of Bahrain in the Middle East as well, so I was out in a place where kind of a startup company essentially, and the place hadn't been run very well. There was a lot of work to get it up to scratch. And one of the first things I did was I knew when this inspection was coming. Well, I thought, well, I need to know where we're at right now. So I did what could technically be concerned as an internal audit. I looked at what we had, what paperwork was in place, who was qualified, who wasn't qualified, what skills they had as well. So I took a good snapshot of the company there and then. Then obviously, after that, I went, oh, okay, now I've got a plan for this incoming. It's called an inspection, but it's very similar to an audit. I got a plan for this audit as well. So I did my plan for the audit and followed it through. Then when it came to the day of the inspection / audit, I passed with absolute flying colours. And the person said, last time I did this at this location, it was a heck of a lot worse. So you've turned it around by doing all this stuff as well. And then I sort of could redo it again in a year's time for another audit as well. So there was things like that. Looking at the ISO 2007-01 qualification, parts of that really felt familiar to me because it's all parts of the process, planning, policy, procedure, and so on. I thought, actually, this is really manageable. So it was, when you found moments like that, it was really surprising, really confidence boosting as well.
Amazing. Yeah, the I've often found that it's mostly the people skills that are some of the most overlooked transferable skills in IT, in cybersecurity, in the cyber industries, because a lot of people think, I think I mentioned this in another episode recently, where if people think cybersecurity, they think someone in a hoodie hunched over a laptop in dramatic lighting, with some synth wave playing in the background and maybe a gun that's placed to their head, right? That's what they think, right? Whereas actually there's loads more to do with that. There's some folks that I talked to recently, Ashley Burke and friends, where they talked about how they're in the cybersecurity industry, but they went in from a non-technical direction. So, they're doing audits, they're doing policy writing. I'm greatly reducing the work that they do, but that's the kind of things that they can be getting on with too. And I feel like those people skills, being able to communicate clearly, which is something I'm failing at doing right now, right? And getting your point across and asking people for the thing that you need and making sure they understand what it is that you need. They're often called the soft skills, but I feel like that's a dreadful name for them because they're actually really non-trivial, right?
They are so essential as well. I think for me personally, the soft skills I think can really help you with opening doors. And even if you come to a very technical area and think, I don't understand this, I'm struggling with this. If you don't know how to approach somebody and say, hey, could you please help me with this? Then you're in trouble. And it's having that confidence, having that people skills to say, I need some assistance with this, or knowing maybe someone else is struggling and talking with them and helping get them sort of through an issue as well. I mean, I worked in a team for 4 months online every day in quite time pressured, intense situations. So we really got to know each other very quickly. And you got to know each other's quirks and sometimes knowing how to push each other's buttons or knowing when to go or back off a little bit as well. And it really, I think soft skills is something that really, 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 you'll be shooting yourself in the foot if you overlook it as well. Even going down to report writing and giving presentations as well. If you can't write a good report and if you can't give a good presentation with a good delivery, then you're going to struggle, surely. If you need to speak to the board members and you need to translate technical issues into more manageable bite-sized pieces of information, then you need to know how to do that translation and you need to know how to give that delivery as well. If you can't do that, you need to work on getting it better.
Sure. And I feel like I said, they're the non-trivial skills, right? They're the things that some people find really quite difficult to do. Like, if you're low on confidence, if you're more of an introvert, you're not likely to want to stand up in a room full of industry peers and try and teach them something, right? And I'm not trying to, I mean, I'm an introvert and I'm quite low on confidence myself. So, I'm not trying to say that that is in any way a bad thing. And not being able to do that is also not a bad thing. But, if you're going for a job in an industry where you have to be able to communicate with lots of people, maybe there's some skills that can be learned, some coping mechanisms for actually being able to do that. And I think that's quite important too.
Yeah, they actually gave us a really good learning platform and a good environment for that as well, because you had opportunities to give presentations and you had opportunity to fail as well, and you'd get your feedback, or you'd get your feedback immediately from your teammates as well. Sometimes some of the feedback is not so nice to hear, but you take it on board and you learn and you develop from it. And even sort of going from that week 1 to like week 16, the differences from everybody was staggering, really, in terms of the progress and the development that we made within just a period of 4 months. So yeah, it's essential in my views.
Totally. What I try to do in the companies that I work alongside of, because I'm long-time listeners will know I'm a contractor, but the companies that I work alongside of, I try to bring about this idea of like a lunch and learn or sharing of knowledge. Lunch and learns are super easy to set up. I mean, it requires someone to have the confidence to stand up in a room full of their peers and try and teach something. But the goal is you've got 15 minutes, give people in the room enough knowledge that they can go away and Google to learn more, and you're all sitting around you eating your lunch.
Yeah, it's ability to learn or learning how to learn, I think is, and that's one of the biggest takeaways I took from this course is I appreciate that I know some stuff now, and I appreciate that I know, or I appreciate I know that I don't know in certain areas as well. The more you know, the more you realize that you don't know. I think it's more of the case as well. So, but then I now know how to go ahead and where to go to, who to speak to, what to Google, and that gives you a whole world of confidence to be on that path.
It does. I think it's Donald Rumsfeld who said there are known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns, right?
Yeah,
And,
that sounds familiar.
Yeah. And, what you're saying is, the known knowns because you've studied them, right?
Mm.
Where you have the gaps in your knowledge, you have the known unknowns. Those are the things that you know that you don't know about, or you don't know much about. So, yeah, you're going away and you're Googling. And the unknown unknowns are the things that are completely off your radar, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea. But then somebody comes along and says, hey, Google this phrase, and it'll tell you all about it. And then that shifts from an unknown unknown to a known unknown.
I mean, I can give you a wonderful example of the situation. And this is why I've been quite busy recently. Last week, I actually got invited to a cybersecurity cluster meeting here in Scarborough. And it was set up with local big business. I think the council, there was a number of small businesses there. There was a few cyber companies there. There was a company known as Plexel. There was an American company known as Missy, so MISI there, and they apparently done some work with the NSA and the head of the NSA in America. So they were fairly big dogs, I guess, over there. And it turned out to be a presentation or a series of presentations on operational technologies and how important it was, and how investment in operational technology and cyber sort of training and awareness could be very, very key to sort of national infrastructure as well. And to be able to sit there for nearly 2 hours straight and pretty much understand 95% of the presentations and the conversations, and then to be able to go away after the presentations and network with people I've never met before, and talk about various themes and various issues and bits of software. I'm sort of, if I was another person looking at me, I'd be like, who is this guy? I'm absolutely gobsmacked. It was very validating for the actual education and the training experience I had to be able to sort of be in that environment and be okay to be there as well.
I like that. I love when the very first programming conference I ever went to, I had a very similar experience. I'm walking in and I'm quaking in my boots. I'm like, I don't know any of these people here. I don't know what the talks are about. I don't know what's going on. I shouldn't be here. I got imposter syndrome really badly. And I was like, I shouldn't be here. I've snuck in somehow. I've fooled them into letting me come to this free event. Like somehow I've caused some bad things to happen and I'm here. And then the first person I talked to after like getting in, you get in, you get your pass or whatever, you say who you are. The first person that I talked to who wasn't there just to get you through the door was like, oh, hey, so what do you do? Oh, well, I'm a graduate programmer. I do X, Y, and Z. And they're like, oh, cool. Tell me more about that. Have you done this? Have you used this technology? Have you done that? And I just became part of the group immediately. Right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've started doing when I do go to conferences, and I've been doing it for a while now, since well before the world went wobbly, is sometimes you find people standing around in circles, right? There's a couple of people having a chat. If I join that group, what I do is I step slightly back and to the side. That way it leaves a little gap for someone else to come in, right? So if you're standing around in a perfect circle, there's no way for anyone to sort of get into that circle. If I try and leave even half a person's worth of gap, they can sort of turn in sideways and go, hey, I'd like to be part of this conversation too. And then you just sort of, you all take a bit of a step back and provide another gap, right?
Yeah.
And just being able to just fit in is amazing.
Yeah, it was good. To actually chat with someone from, like I said, that American company, and we talked about using, I think, a piece of software called QRadar. And I remember during my training, absolutely hating it because it was so difficult to do. But for someone with no prior knowledge of it, then to say, okay, we're going to work on this for the afternoon. And it was a hard afternoon. But then to actually chat to someone with experience in the industry and to hear them go, oh, yeah, I don't like that. It's very difficult to use. It's like, yes, not just me.
If you're enjoying this show, would you mind sharing it with a friend or colleague? Check out Podcatcher for a link to the show notes, which has an embedded player within it and a transcription and all that stuff, and share that link with them. I'd really appreciate it if you could indeed share the show. But if you'd like a few other ways to support it, you could leave a rating or review on your podcatcher of choice. So if you head over to .netcore.show/review, you'll find loads of ways to do that. You could consider buying the show a coffee. The Buy Me a Coffee link is available on each show's show notes page on the website. This is a one-off financial support option. You could become a patron. This is a monthly subscription-based financial support option, and the link to that is included on each episode show notes page as well. I'd love it if you could share the show with a friend or colleague, or leave a rating or review. The other options are completely up to you, and are not required at all to continue enjoying the show. Anyway, let's get back to it. So let's talk about the training that you went through, right? We discussed ahead of time, and you've mentioned it a few times now. It's kind of like a boot camp like experience, right? And I've been through university where you're supposed to like on the body quotes, spend a lot of your time studying, but most of the time it's spent down the pub. Whereas I feel like
charged.
Yeah, right. Whereas I feel like boot camps are like the opposite, right? It feels like you go from 0 to 60 on the first day and have to keep that up. I've never been to a boot camp, but from what I've been told, this
maybe day 2, day 3. Day 1 was quite friendly and welcoming, but
okay.
For me personally, if I go in, if I think, yeah, this is a good idea, I'm going to go fully in on it as well. I really committed to this boot camp. I took it very, very seriously, even to the point of redecorating the area that I'm studying in, ordering new chairs, new desks, a second screen. I thought, I'm not going to put this like in the bare minimum. I want it to do what I'm going to do comfortably as well. That was important to me. And obviously, I stopped work as well. So, not doing any work. I didn't want any distractions or anything else that could take my energy away, because I wanted to give all my energy to the course. And yes, it was intensive, and yes, it was quite hard, to be honest. There's no point in um, saying it was all singing in rainbows and happy, happy all the time. It was something that you need to be fully committed to do. And you need to have a good support network around you as well. You need to have someone that you could talk to and vent your frustrations with, or share your concerns or your worries, or even share your wins with as well. You do need that external support network, but they do give CAPSLOCK as well. Did actually give a very good support network throughout the course, because they appreciate how difficult it is. They There's a number of coaching sort of, when we were talking about it, like the soft skills, there's a number of coaching materials there. All the staff, mental health first aid trainers as well, so they can see if people are struggling as well. There were various times where you could chat with people. There was various social events within the actual boot camp as well. You could chat to sort of qualified doctors. You really have this sort of unique opportunity to actually. I likened a lot the senior staff to, the analogy was it was like booking an Airbnb with a Ferrari in a garage. You're
Right.
not going to leave that Ferrari sitting in the garage. You're going to go, right, let's take this out and use it. And to have that opportunity to speak to these highly qualified, well-educated people about pretty much anything was such a wonderful opportunity.
Awesome. Awesome. So you talked about the support during the course, right? You've got all this support around you. You said there's trained professionals there to help with looking for signs of, I'm guessing, things like imposter syndrome and worry and stress and things like that. But what about, like, you finish the course, you're out into the real world, all the stress is gone, right? There's no more stress. It's all fine. It's all singing and dancing, and it's all smelling like roses, and it's all coming up Millhouse, right?
Honestly, actually, this period has been very difficult. It's been quite a challenge to adjust to, and even it's funny you bring us up. After we finish the day later on this afternoon, I'm actually going to chat to one of these coaches
Oh,
as
cool.
well. It's not, you've done the course, get out, get away from us. They're still there. They're still reaching out as well. One of the hardest things for me personally was, you're going through days, or 2-3 days a week. I would probably be coming here into my little office at about 9 in the morning. And then sometimes I'd be locking up the office about 9 at night. And you're putting in long, long days, and you're putting in a lot of work, and you go to bed and you would be dead. You'd absolutely done in. And to go from that sort of level and intensity to, oh, you don't have anything to do anymore, you don't have anywhere to be. Obviously, there's still job hunting to do, which I am doing, but the pressure is a lot less. And that's actually been quite a challenge to deal with. And there's been like sort of almost, after the first week or so where like recovering from the course, it's sort of second week, it's like I have maybe a little bit too much excess energy in certain ways. So there's been a few bad nights sleep and so on. So I'm going to talk to this coach about some of these issues. And they did actually say, they did give us some talks very much right at the end of the course, said this might happen to you over the next couple of weeks. So they were 110% right. My friend who recommended the course to me as well, he said the first 2 or 3 weeks after the course was very strange and very difficult to get through, because it is quite a dramatic change of pace and quite an upheaval as well. So yeah, truthfully, honesty, it's been a challenge.
Okay. So you say is there support there for you when you finished? You said you're going to
Yeah,
talk more to
yeah.
coaches.
Like this week, I'm going to talk to a coach later this afternoon, and then on Thursday, I have an appointment with the head of careers as well. So it's a one-on-one half-hour session where we're just looking at where I currently am in terms of my job search, and we're also meeting up as a group, as my team, with that careers to have another talk as well. So there's
Oh,
just this week alone, I think there's even a workshop on interview questions. And this workshop is one I've not done yet, actually, and it's about that question of what salary do you expect, and then how to answer that. It's great, really. You know, I mean, they're putting on enough stuff to sort of fill my week, even if I decided not to do any job hunting and just lay around watching cartoons or something.
guilty as charged. I like that because I remember, so this may not be the experience of everyone, but when I did my degree, 2004 to 2008, it felt very much like, you went through the degree ceremony. I'm going to use this phrase that my brother uses, so I apologize, everyone. They tap you on the butt and say, "Get out," right? That's kind of what the experience felt like to me. There was no sort of after support. But I really like that you've had this system where they're still sort of helping you out along the way. That's brilliant. Because, I mean, from their point of view, it's their best interest as well as your best interest, right? Because,
yeah,
the sooner you get into work.
There's two aspects from their side of things. It's one, it's the reputation as well. They are, I think, 2-year, maybe 3-year old company, so they're still in their startup phase. But I think they've recently had a new group of students start today, and they're going to have another new group of students start next week as well. So this is like the busiest they've ever been as well, and that's one key thing. But then, obviously, as you say, and I've mentioned before as well, I've took out a loan. I need to get that job, and I need to start paying back that loan. So
Absolutely.
it is important that we get the right job and the job where we're flourishing in, and then obviously we can settle our debts.
Exactly. I like it. So, would you say, having gone through this experience, that cybersecurity or the cyber industries, whichever part of it people go for, would you say that it's kind of almost anyone can do it, as long as they have the support around them to help them learn the stuff? Or, would you say that it, obviously, putting aside things like you require a certain type of mind or whatever, or that kind of thing, maybe you don't have any skills yet that are transferable. Do you think that from what you've experienced, if you get the right support and the right materials, anyone can learn it, right?
It's plausible, yeah. I think as long as you have that willingness to learn and that willingness to listen as well, maybe sort of don't go in with preconceived expectations as well. I mean, from my personal experience, the training was delivered in a certain manner, which was quite unique and quite different and quite fresh to a lot of people's previous experiences. So that was a challenge to overcome in itself. But we've had, just in my course, I think we had people who were chefs, we had shop workers, we had a director. I think we've had dancers. In my group alone, we had a hairdressing sort of mum. We had a guy who does wedding DJs, and sort of. So the background is for everybody and anybody. As long as you're willing to commit, it's definitely possible.
Cool. I like that. That sort of reinforces the idea that anyone can do it, right? You just need the drive and, like you say, the ability to sort of, the willingness to learn and the ability to sort of just drop those preconceived notions of you're not sitting around in hoodies staring at laptops with dramatic lighting and, all that kind of stuff. All those examples I gave earlier on. It's not Mr. Robot and Johnny Mnemonic. Are the two that...
Nothing wrong with a good hoodie, though. Nothing wrong with a good hoodie, though.
Oh, no, totally. Totally. Yeah. Okay, so what about the community itself? So, like the community of cyber experts. Did you get introduced to the community during the course, after the course,
Both, really. Various degrees of success, I think, because obviously you get introduced to a lot of people, and some people have certain expertise in certain areas, and those areas might not be of interest to you. And then obviously, if they're not of interest to you, sometimes you can struggle to have that natural connect. It's maybe more of a respectful level of connect, but you're not going to be in their DMs every day chatting away to them. But there are some other people, obviously, where you think, oh, this area is for me. You might start leaning towards them a little bit as well. And there was good mentorship scheme at our time where we'd have sort of out of class meetings with various people. I mean, I've met SOC analysts, SOC managers, cloud sort of expertise. I've met consultants, people from all sorts of different backgrounds and different skill sets as well. And then even via LinkedIn, I've sort of started to become, I think there's Capture the Talent as well. They have a website and a Discord, and they do various events, and they're very supportive as well. And they're really encouraging getting people into the cyber industry. So they were good guys. I certainly see that. And then obviously, I think maybe this is just me and a social media thing. There are elements, I think, where you can see on LinkedIn where people go, boo camps, boo, you shouldn't be doing that. You should go away and learn X, Y, Z, these typical gatekeeper type personalities, really. And I think that's a little unfair because there might be some types of boot camps that maybe are not the best as well. But going through what I've gone through and the effort that I've put in, it sort of feels a little bit dismissive, really. And I think if I could go from what I've learned from week 1 to week 16, I think that shows the commitment and the willingness to work and learn within the industry as well. So, yeah, there's a good mix. There are a lot of positives. Definitely the positives from who I've met outweigh the negatives for sure.
Oh, good. Yeah, I completely abhor any kind of gatekeeping at all. I can't stand it. When somebody says, oh, you're not a real, or you should have done, I'm like, no, I am a real and I have done. It's that simple. It's because I don't fit your preconceived, it's that preconceived notions again. As long as you don't, just because I don't fit that preconceived notion doesn't mean that I'm not A and I haven't done A,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I said, one of the people in my team, she's a mother of 3. She does part-time hairdressing as well. And in fact, if you think about it, this goes back to our conversation on transferable skills. Talk about threat analysis and keeping things secure as well. She's a mother of 3 who has to work very hard for a living as well. She was an absolute inspiration at times. And she's thinking, at times I think she suffered from imposter syndrome and thinking, am I doing the right thing? Well, I'm thinking, for sure you can. You've just brought up 3 kids and you're doing your job and you're doing this course and you're managing to find time to go off and do fun things as well. Absolutely staggered about how well she actually managed herself and what she looked after throughout this course as well. I was very, very impressed in that regard. So, and that's someone that you would, at first glance, you go, no way. That's not your typical hoodie, dark room type cyber preconceived notion. Completely breaks the mold and completely sort of disrupts that standard expectation of a geek behind a computer or whatever. I think it's a wonderful sort of example.
Excellent. So a couple of quick questions as we wrap up then, John. So what would you, if you could have one or two key takeaway points from your experience so far in the training you've received and the networking that you've had and the experience so far, what would those couple of key takeaway points be? So I've got some silly examples, right? Silly examples to start you off. Would it be something like believe in yourself, go after what you want, ditch your Google and Facebook accounts? What would it? What would your key piece of thing be?
Don't compare to your previous expectations as well. Come in with an open mind. If you're connected to what you think you know in the past, it's going to be a heck of a lot harder to learn new things. That would be a big thing for me as well. Go in there, be willing to listen and show that you've listened as well. I think that's a difference. There's a key difference. Actually showing that you've listened to somebody is a really big skill.
Awesome. And are there any like socials or websites or things that you'd recommend people check out? Maybe there's some places where they can go to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is CAPSLOCK themselves. It literally is all caps, and then it's .ac.uk. But then obviously for myself, really, I'm just very connected with people on LinkedIn as well. If you're looking into this sort of stuff, there are various different names and characters that will always pop up on LinkedIn sharing good content and good stuff and good discussions as well. I also personally, from time to time, will hop onto Try Hack Me and Rangeforce and do a few labs just to keep skills up to date, really, and keep them there. I mean, I'm still learning, so it's. And I think maybe this is another takeaway as well. Just don't expect to stop learning. If you're of that mindset of just being a constant learner, then you'll do okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, John. I really appreciate you sharing your experience with us, because I feel like this is something that we can do to try and make technology, cyber, all of that kind of stuff more accessible to folks, right? By sharing our experiences and sharing our thoughts.
It definitely needs to be more humanized, I guess, in a way, and taking off that hoodie, turning on the lights, opening the window, letting in the fresh air, so to speak.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity and the platform to share some of this experiences with as well. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you very much. That was my discussion with John Westgarth about getting into the cybersecurity industry. Be sure to check out the show notes for a bunch of links to some of the stuff that we covered and a full transcription of the interview. The show notes, as always, can be found at .netcore.show, and there will be a link directly to them in your podcatcher. And don't forget to spread the word. Leave a rating or review on your podcatcher of choice. Head over to .netcore.show/review for ways to do that, or reach out via our contact page, which is at .netcore.show/contact, and to come back next time for more .net goodness. I'll see you again real soon. See you later, folks. .NET Core Podcast is a production of RJJ Software Limited.